Imagine the Netherlands in the early 1600s, a time of wealth, trade, and new ideas. Ships brought treasures from around the world, and cities like Amsterdam flourished. In this golden age, a new flower arrived: the tulip. Tulips came from Central Asia, brought over from the Ottoman Empire. Their deep colors and elegant shapes amazed the Dutch. Some tulips had rare, flame-like patterns, highly prized and mysterious. Soon, tulips became a symbol of wealth and status. The craze grew. People traded bulbs, hoping for fortune. The tulip was no longer just a flower. It was a dream of instant riches. The desire for tulips turned into a complete frenzy, a kind of fever that people now call Tulip Mania. It was not just the rich who were interested anymore. Soon, ordinary people, craftsmen, shopkeepers, and even servants, started to get involved. They saw their neighbors making huge amounts of money just by trading tulip bulbs, and they wanted to do the same. They believed that the price of tulips would continue to go up forever. It seemed like a foolproof way to get rich very quickly, without having to do much work. Everyone was swept up in the excitement and the promise of easy wealth. To make trading easier, people started buying and selling tulip futures. This meant they were not trading the actual bulbs themselves, because those were planted in the ground for most of the year. Instead, they traded paper contracts that promised to deliver a specific bulb at a future date. This allowed trading to happen all year round, even when the tulips were not available. These deals were often made in local taverns over a beer. Buyers and sellers would gather, shouting out prices and making deals on scraps of paper. It became a fast-paced and risky game driven by hope and speculation. The prices for the rarest bulbs reached unbelievable heights. A single bulb of a famous variety like the Semper Augustus or the Viceroy could be worth a fortune. People would trade anything they owned to get their hands on one. They sold their houses, their land, their businesses, and their family heirlooms. They took out large loans, convinced that they would be able to pay them back easily once they sold their precious bulb. The value of these bulbs was no longer connected to their reality as a flower. It was based purely on what someone else was willing to pay for it tomorrow. This new market attracted all sorts of people. There were the professional traders, known as florists, who moved from city to city following the market. But there were also many amateurs, or plebs, who knew very little about tulips. They were simply gambling. They hoped to buy a bulb for a low price and sell it for a higher price a few days or even a few hours later. This constant buying and selling pushed the prices up even further. The whole country seemed to be caught in a dream, where a simple flower bulb held the key to an endless fortune, and nobody wanted to be the one left behind. At the height of Tulip Mania, tulip bulbs were treated like money itself, more valuable than gold or silver. Wealth was measured by rare bulbs, not coins. People used bulbs to buy goods, sometimes even trading a single bulb for livestock, cheese, or even a house. One legendary bulb sold for the price of a grand Amsterdam townhouse. The rare Semper Augustus was the king of tulips. Only a handful existed. Owning a rare tulip became the ultimate status symbol, fueling fierce competition among neighbors. In the end, tulips were prized not just for their beauty, but for the prestige they brought. Then, in the cold winter of 1637, everything changed. It happened very suddenly. At a routine bulb auction in the city of Haarlem, something strange occurred. For the first time, there were no buyers willing to pay the high prices being asked. A sense of panic began to spread. People started to wonder if the prices had finally become too high. What if they couldn't find someone to buy their expensive bulbs? The confidence that had held the market up for so long began to crack. The dream was about to turn into a nightmare for thousands of people across the Netherlands. The news from Haarlem traveled quickly to other cities. Like a virus, the fear infected traders everywhere. People who had promised to buy bulbs at very high prices suddenly refused to pay. Everyone rushed to sell their bulbs at once, but nobody wanted to buy them. Prices began to fall, and then they crashed. Within just a few weeks, the value of tulip bulbs dropped by more than 90%. A bulb that had been worth the price of a house was now worth no more than a common onion. The bubble had burst, and the mania was over. The aftermath of the crash was devastating. People who had been rich on paper just a month before were now bankrupt. They had sold their homes and businesses and were left with nothing but a few worthless flower bulbs and huge debts they could never repay. The courts were filled with people suing each other over broken contracts. The government tried to step in and find a solution, but it was too late. The damage was done. The trust that held the economy together had been shattered, and it would take years for the country to fully recover from the financial and emotional shock. From this incredible story, people learned a very important lesson about money and markets. They learned that the price of something is not always its true value. When people buy things only because they hope to sell them for a higher price later, it can create a dangerous bubble. These bubbles always burst in the end, because prices cannot go up forever. The Tulip Mania became the first well-documented example of a speculative bubble in history. It serves as a powerful warning to this day that greed and the hope of getting rich quick can lead people to make very irrational decisions, turning a beautiful flower into a symbol of financial ruin.